Hi, Peter Hayden here, and I help guide organizations the potential of data, analytics, and AI within Microsoft's ecosystem. And today, I want to share with you something I was preparing for another customer to understand a bit more about Microsoft Fabric, as reporting something for them. And it made me think about, well, what is it that I share in my conversations with my customers, or why they should consider Microsoft Fabric. And so I thought I'd take a portion of that video, which explains what Fabric is, and just want to share with my audience directly around, what are 5 reasons I commonly sort of speak to customers about that might be useful as you're thinking about what Microsoft Fabric can do for you, or how it's organized and structured, or what the sort of benefits might sort of look like. So let's kick into it, and let's pick with one of the first ones, and one of the easiest ones to think about is reduced complexity. So if you're new to understanding a bit more about Microsoft Fabric, it is a SaaS service, software as a service solution. And what that means is that, unlike previous ways we either build infrastructure in our data centers or through a cloud service like Azure, all the components required, Fabric is just turn it on and it's all provision managed for you by the cloud provider, in this case Microsoft, for all the services you may need. This greatly simplifies the deployment and the management and the governance of the platform. And so that complexity you'd have about integrating various components or designing the architecture, it just goes away. There's still some design work required, but the underpinning infrastructure or services required is much more simplified. So a lot of complexity reduced means you can get started quicker with analytics and reduce any of that delay and time and complexity to just get going and get into actually providing analytics outcomes and results. So that's a really great reason why, definitely, you need to consider Microsoft Fabric, reduce the workloads of your teams, engage third parties, and so forth. The second reason I commonly mention, based on reduced complexity, is not just the complexity of those parts, but it's a cost model or a simplified and predictable. And that's a really key part. Both of these are really key. Predictable cost. When we go back to another scenarios like a modern data platform on Microsoft Azure, a range of services might be required. If you look at the Azure cost calculator, there's a range of parameters. It's really hard to predict what that cost might look like until you start using it and start baselining it. And usage patterns will vary from organization to organization, so it's not like we can sort of look at one customer and go, well, every other customer is going to be the same. It just is a big variance on that. Microsoft Fabric takes away a lot of that, and because it's a SaaS service, is simply based on compute, how much compute you need for the various services Fabric provides, as well as storage. That's about it. There is potentially some network costs involved. There's some, at the time of recording, it's coming soon, some information around that, possibly some usual egress costs that you expect with many of these cloud providers. But basically the biggest costs are the compute and storage, and storage is even that. It is actually quite, most organizations I work with, quite small compared to compute cost. And partners have tools to help size it up, so you know how much capacity compute you need. But basically, for an organization that needs to have a reliable, predictable way to know what does that cost to run this capability, Fabric now provides that. You didn't have before with half a dozen or more Azure services to run. So that's a really great reason why think about Microsoft Fabric today to help as we all think about the economics in our professional and personal lives. Fabric helps simplify that and know what you're up for. This is the third here is that, and this is a bit more inferred than anything else, but if we think about what Microsoft has done in the past around their products, they put attention into it, and Power BI itself is a really good example, but Fabric now also is that this is the center of the gravity for innovation. So I think about when Power BI was sort of a couple of years in, there was Power BI you could run on premises, there was a cloud service, and a lot of people doing both. All the investments were going to the cloud service, and you got 3 updates a year on your on-premises environment, whereas the cloud service update every month. And I think about that with SharePoint, and I look at that and I think about, well, given that we're taking a lot of mature Azure services to bring together on a unified banner of Fabric, then it makes sense that this is going to be the where their investment is going to be made, and because they're making investments, it's going to be the center for innovation. And we already see that with Data Activator. It's a new service only available in Fabric, which is used for business rules notifications against data, a real simplified explanation of it. And more things are likely to come. There's a great roadmap. So it's probably going to be that place. So if you're inside Fabric ecosystem, you'll start benefiting from the updates that as things come out based on what people are asking for. So if you've got a legacy Azure environment, I mean, that's all going to be very much supported, and now I'm sure that will be updated. But if you've got the latest stuff, I'm taking a guess, a bit of a hunch, it's going to be inside of Fabric first. So that's something to consider and monitor at least. And if you're not in Fabric or not in Azure, then absolutely, consider that. If you're a competing product, certainly consider around, this is now one single place where it's all going to happen. The fourth reason, but I'll move my page up a little bit, to think about why I consider Microsoft Fabric, and it's the security. So there's probably 2 ways I think about this. I'm probably going to oversimplify it, but I think about maybe more than 2 ways. Think about how data, we often hear that, I don't want all these people to see this report. I only want to see, or not see all the data inside the report. I want to have that certain people based on a some sort of department or some sort of rank or what have you, to only see a subset of information. Now, there's been a lot of there's like abilities to do row and level, object level security. But you can, if you secure it at the data source inside of Fabric, everything just flows through to the visualization layer or to the query layer of that data. So you've got this built in really well tied to an Active Directory or Entra ID to allow you to, as you log into someone, and you have access to data, that's what you have access to and not anything else. So it's inherently got those controls built in, which is a great boon compared to, I guess, some of these, even within the Microsoft ecosystem, having separate services. There's all the testing needs to happen. And we've got a lot of organizations we work with that have, say, AWS backend and a Power BI front end. Visualization is how do we keep those data permissions in sync, or make sure and test that that works. So if you want to reduce the thought and overhead around that, definitely consider Microsoft Fabric. The second, I'll leave it at 2, the second way is secure end-to-end is that all this data is in your tenancy, already around, with your if your Azure Landing Zone deployed, and controls for security and governance, all the networking rules and controls you apply, everything you're used to around, as mentioned, Entra ID and multi-factor authentication, all that's just all baked in to that environment you're probably already invested in. So it's just another service and capability you can turn on, and knowing it's going to inherit all those sorts of policies and controls you've already invested in, putting in place, testing, and making sure it work. So it really helps with then, if you need to do any assertion around that, any other accreditations, it falls under that umbrella, generally speaking, but please go, obviously take your own, do your own due diligence on that. But idea is, yes, that will be much more simplified. And the last reason I think it's exciting to think, I'm really looking forward to be able to test this myself outside of the marketing videos, is Copilot for Fabric. And this is, interestingly, when I mention this, I've got to repeat it 2 or 3 times to customers, because they get excited thinking they're getting access to Fabric for the Microsoft 365, so everything inside of Outlook and Word and Teams, but that's not the case. This is just Copilot for Fabric, so I'll be clear on that. But when you buy a certain level of Fabric, there's a minimum level, you do need a F64 or higher, then you have access to that, and that gives you a developer experience, so a data engineer, data analyst who is ingesting data, modeling data, visualizing data, productivity enhancements to go and make that happen and build that. So it's a bit of an accelerator that you can use to more complex types of queries and data structures that you want to be able to pull together. In terms of a consumer perspective, now with Fabric, you don't license everyone individually. Every organization has access to, say, Power BI. Again, F64 is the minimum. In this case, they don't get the ability to create reports using Copilot. They can ask questions of the data they have access to, of course, and get that in the response pane when they're interacting with Copilot. So there's great ways to enhance the productivity and have the digital users or the data citizens ask questions of data and get responses to it. So there's the 5 there's other things I'm sure I talk to customers about, but the 5 things are really highlighted in the benefits of Fabric. It's the reduced complexity compared to what we've done to date, especially the Microsoft ecosystem. Simplified and predictable cost, again, makes it much easier to understand what you need to spend. The Center for Innovations is where I feel Microsoft's going to put more of their effort into, and we'll see new things come out. Security, all the way through the data and the services, as well as that productivity and natural language capabilities that Copilot for Fabric provides when you buy an F64 or higher. So I hope that was useful to understanding of what I think is why today in the middle of 2024 you should think about Microsoft Fabric. Outside of all the great capabilities it provides, but outside of that, why would you pick that over another product? These things certainly stand out to me. But if you'd like to know more, please reach out and contact me. And if you're in Australia, certainly I can assist you with any queries around that directly through the organisation I work for. And if you like the video, please hit the like button. If you'd like to know more about other things I share, subscribe to the channel and you'll get updates when new content is released. And look forward to seeing you next time.